Every neighborhood has that house nobody wants to live in, sometimes because of a tragedy, other times because of what no one can explain. This story happened to Lucas, a 26-year-old man who decided to rent a cheap apartment in an old building downtown. It was a simple place, but there was something strange. One of the rooms was always locked. According to the realtor, the window of that room had been sealed for safety reasons, since it faced a dangerous gap between buildings. Lucas found it odd, but accepted it. After all, the rent was incredibly cheap. On the first night, Lucas heard scratching sounds coming from inside the locked room. He thought it was the old plumbing, or maybe a rat. On the second night, he heard footsteps, soft steps, like someone walking barefoot on carpet, inside the locked room. On the third night, the doorknob turned. Lucas froze. The room was locked with a key, and he had the only key, which was still in his pocket. Too scared to approach, he slept on the couch with the lights on, holding a broomstick nearby. The next day, he called the building manager demanding to know the truth. That room should never have been rented with the rest of the apartment, the manager said nervously. There was an accident here. The previous tenant jumped out the window, but before that, she spent 3 days locked inside, saying someone was talking to her at night. Nobody knows how she survived without food or water. Lucas decided to leave that same night, but before leaving, he wanted to see what was inside the room. He forced the door open, and it gave way easily, as if it had never been locked. The room was empty, except for one thing. On the wall opposite the sealed window, there was an old mirror, dusty, almost faded. And in the mirror, he saw a woman standing behind him. He spun around quickly, but there was no one there. The reflection disappeared, but the scratches on the wall where the mirror had leaned looked like they were made by nails, vertical, desperate arcs. Lucas left the apartment that night and never came back. And to this day, the mirror is still there, reflecting what shouldn't be seen.
I hadn't heard my mother's voice in 5 years. Not since we buried her on a rainy Thursday in October. Not since the world tilted and everything I thought I knew about life changed. Her death was ruled an accident, an unfortunate fall down the stairs while she was home alone. I accepted that. I grieved. I moved on. At least, I thought I did. Until last week. It was late. I was in bed, half asleep, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A voicemail. No ringtone. Just the vibration. I checked the screen. Unknown number. One new voicemail. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m. I almost didn't listen, but I pressed play. And I heard her voice. Sweetheart, I have to tell you something. Don't trust him. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped the phone. The voice was distorted, static-filled, but unmistakable. It was her, my mother. The way she said sweetheart, no one else ever said it quite like that. My heart pounded in my chest. I replayed the message again and again. Same exact words, same exact tone. But it made no sense. She was dead, gone. There was no logical explanation. Who was him? And how could she possibly be leaving me messages? The next morning, I drove straight to my father's house. We hadn't been close since the funeral. Something about him had changed. He barely looked up when I entered. "I got a message last night," I said. "From Mom?" He froze. His coffee mug hovered in midair. "I think you're tired," he finally said. "Stress can do strange things." That was it. No questions, no concern. He just stared out the window and said nothing else. I dropped the phone. My whole life I'd believed what the police told me, what my father told me, that she'd fallen, that it had been tragic, but clean. But now I didn't know what to believe. That night, I left my phone on the charger, volume turned all the way up. I didn't want to miss anything. 3:17 a.m., it buzzed again. Another voicemail. Same unknown number. I pressed play with shaking hands. He's lying. The night I died, it wasn't an accident. I started looking through her old things, boxes I hadn't opened in years. Old photos, receipts, journal pages. I found a diary tucked inside a shoebox filled with short entries. Some mundane, some paranoid. One, dated 2 weeks before her death, stood out. "He watches me when he thinks I'm not looking. I found something in the basement. I don't think he knows I saw it." I closed the diary. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about how pale my father looked when I mentioned her voice, like he'd seen a ghost. The next night I stayed awake in the dark, waiting. And once again, at exactly 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. This time the voice was urgent, panicked. "He's coming. I don't have much time. You need to leave. You need to." The message cut off, just static. I sat in silence, surrounded by the hum of the night and the soft ticking of my wall clock. I felt like something was watching me. The next day I went back to the house. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. When I confronted my father, I expected denial, anger, confusion. But he just stared at me, calm, cold. "You shouldn't have listened," he said. Then he smiled, and for the first time in my life, I was scared of him. I backed away. His eyes followed me as I walked out the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't go home. I didn't go to work. I just drove for hours, trying to clear my head, trying to forget the sound of his voice when he said those words. That night, I stayed in a motel. No windows, one bed, cheap lock on the door. I didn't sleep. I just waited. 3:17 a.m., the phone buzzed. No caller ID, one new message. I pressed play. "I love you. Run." That was the last time I ever heard her voice. I packed a single bag and left the next morning. New city, new job, new phone number, no forwarding address. But even now, every night I watch the clock. And when the minute hand creeps toward 3:17, I feel my chest tighten. I double-check the locks. I keep the phone turned off. But sometimes, even with the battery removed, it buzzes. Just once. And I remember what she said. Run. So I do. Because I don't think she was just warning me about him. I think she was warning me about what comes after.